welcome to the Shoulder to Shoulder podcast. I'm here with my brother Bryce, and I'm also here with my good friend Matt. We're going to hear talking about the fall sports, how they've been progressing. So let's start off with football. So Jack Elliott comes back against JCA from injury, and Caravan win 35-21. They had a bit of a rocky start for the first half. I mean, things weren't going their way. I was scared they was going to lose for a second. I don't know. I wasn't really convinced. It was a very emotional game because it was a Carmelite Classic and Mount Carmel's first game against Joliet Catholic in years, and they were going to honor Kevin Hansen. So it was a really monumental game.
Yeah, I'll take this one, since it was a pretty big day for us with the Caravan Broadcast Network and Caravan Media Group. The game was broadcasted through the Marquee Sports Network, but I really do think the Green Jacket awardees and Mr. Kevin Hansen and his family, that really triumphed that whole thing we had going on. The last Friday night was a lot less about football and a whole lot more about tradition and history. And man, there ain't nothing more tradition like than Joliet Catholic playing Mount Carmel on the gridiron. This was the first time in 17 years that the two teams played, and honestly, I think it lived up to expectations. It wasn't a blowout, it wasn't a shootout or anything like that. It was some gritty football. Started off with that opening kickoff. Unfortunately, Quentin Burrell fumbled it a little bit. JCA took over, and a few scoring drives later, they put it in for 6. It was a monumental game, like you said, Bishop, where I really do think that every time we play JCA now, we will honor Mr. Hansen in some way. Now we've got the trophy, the Carmelite Classic trophy, that was actually up here in the room for a couple days. We used it for some marketing purposes and to kind of promote the game a little bit. That was really fun. I had a lot of fun with last week's game. Whenever I head into a game and I'm about to announce it, there's definitely a vibe you get. I'd say that Hun game, that was kind of a it seemed a lot bigger than just a season opener. That was the vibe I got from it. It was a test right off the bat, week 1, right? We didn't even get a quiz. We just headed right into the exam, man. And you know what? We didn't fail the exam, but we didn't pass it with flying colors either, right? Still looking back to that loss week 1 was tough. But yeah, last week the vibe I got from it, to be honest, I kept thinking less and less about football and more about other things, and that just goes to show why Mr. Hansen led such a great life. That impact lives up, down the line into football games, into the Green Jacket Award now. I could talk about this forever. I wrote an article, I made a video, I interviewed people about it. I could talk for hours and hours and hours about it. But just talking about the game here, Bryce, what are your thoughts on what actually happened on the field, with Elliott coming back and us getting a pretty nice win over the Hilltoppers?
Yeah, I think Elliott coming back was definitely a stabilizer just mentally for the team. Now you have your starting quarterback back. But JCA, once again, they came out really well with their rushing attack. Another very run-heavy team,
Oh, yeah.
like Ignatius, which has given us some problems, especially early on in these games. So a little bit of a slow start.
One of their games this season, they ran the ball 86% of their plays in just a single game. They came out of it with a win, but, man, 86% of the time you're running the ball on the ground, and they used more than one running back. They had to. They had 3 or 4 guys out there consistently getting the rock. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a little bit problematic at first, but I feel like our level of talent just carried us over in that second half. Big plays from Jack Elliott getting the ball down the field to his receivers. Freshman Marshawn Thornton really popped in that game.
Oh, man.
Had a really great long receiver.
Oh,
he's
yeah.
just a freak of nature.
I don't know. There was a one play down the right sideline. He went up with it like, OBJ 2014 like catch. Went back one hand. Unfortunately, they called offensive pass interference. I don't, I think if you know Christos and I, you know that we hate to blame things on referees and officials. But it wouldn't have been a catch anyway without that penalty because I think he was out of bounds. I don't know. It was a weird play overall. I guess we'll describe it like that. Wasn't anybody's fault per se, but he did pull it in. He caught it. He didn't drop it. It wasn't so much an incompletion. It was just a unique play in the fact that it didn't turn out the way Marshawn and Jack wanted it to. But man, as soon as I saw that, I'm like, keep this kid out there, like let's get him the ball more. Sure enough, a few plays later, they throw it to him wide open. He runs it down the left sideline puts it in for a touchdown. I was going crazy, because it was a rule for a while that Catholic League teams could not pull up a freshman to varsity.
Yeah.
Now we've got two guys on both sides of the ball making names for themselves. You got Caleb the Bone Crusher Tucker at D-line. He's doing awesome. He started last Friday, which was incredible to see. And now with this receiving core that has completely changed from last year to now, I think it's great that, this week with Fenwick, which Bishop will talk about in a second, as well as next week with Loyola and then heading into the playoffs, man, if we have Marshawn there as another weapon for Jack to use, another guy to have in your back pocket, up your sleeve, I love that. I think it's great. Offensively, he's gonna help out a lot. Yeah. All right, Bishop. What do we got so far for this week though with football? We're kind of moving on from Joliet here now into our next game.
Well, we're up against Fenwick. They're 6-1. They recently blew a team out 42-7. It's gonna be interesting to see what they do. I know their offense is elite, their defensive elite. They have multiple players come from multiple college elite offers, like Ohio State. Some of their players have offers from Ohio State. They have tall men. They have tall men on that team, especially on the defensive line. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do. Bryce, I know you've looked up into some teams. What about this Fenwick team, and how do you think what's our plan to beat them?
Well, Fenwick's defense is one of their major weapons,
They
have one of the best defensive players in the state and also nationally in Nate Marshall, who, as you said, Bishop, is getting a lot of high-end college offers. He ended up committing to Auburn, originally committed to Michigan, but flipped this fall to Auburn. And, yeah, he's just a great defensive player. Last year, he won Chicago Catholic League Orange Defensive Player of the Year. He's just a real game breaker. Forced fumbles, block kicks, sacks, all that kind of stuff. And they also have a lot of big physical linebackers that wrestle, a lot of all-state wrestlers. So they have a deep defensive team, and that may be a bit of a threat to the Caravan, especially as you're thinking about trying to protect Jack Elliott to ensure that he doesn't get too banged up before the postseason. But, yeah, I think with the talent that we have, I still think that we match up well against them and that we can go get a road win.
I'll tell you what, Bryce. This is just my opinion. This is from my perspective of watching not only football but specifically high school football. Programs that have an elite offense and a not-so-great defense are much more susceptible to upsets than teams like Fenwick, in which their defense is extremely consistent, and they have guys like Marshall to hold the line down every game.
Yeah.
Fenwick, I mean, they're coming out, they're beating Ignatius by 10, which that was expected to be kind of a close game, but watching it a little closer, it didn't really seem that close at certain parts, certain quarters, certain scoring drives. Fenwick came out there, they put their all on the field, and the defense, they're leading the way for a winning, not only a winning season. This is going to be one of the best seasons for Fenwick football in a while. Like this is a staple year for them, and if they can upset the Caravan, which hey, I'm over here, Matt Malloy. I love Mount Carmel, but it is a very big possibility that the Caravan can come out there and just. Fenwick will find a way to upset them. Fenwick will find something in our system that they know they can play against. And you pinned it on the head. It's protecting Jack. If Jack can't throw the ball, if Jack can't hand it off to DT, if Jack can't run it, then how are we going to put points on the board? That's a very basic way of looking at it. There's obviously more tedious details in there. But, man, if guys like Marshall and a couple of linebackers we have on here, man, I really do think Fenwick can turn the tides because in a lot of our games we have been coming out flat. That's not a problem because in the second half we turn the tide, we come back, we put some more points on the board, get a nice hefty lead that we can bounce off of in the fourth quarter. However, if Fenwick can not only come out and hold us to a touchdown, maybe 2, maybe 0 points. I don't know, right? If they can do that in both the beginning of the game, go to halftime, take a break, come back and do the same thing, don't be surprised if this is a close game in the fourth quarter. I am, of course, pulling for Mount Carmel to have that not happen. I want us to go out there and beat Fenwick because, man, the Friars are a good team. You know, they've got guys on here, like Bishop said. They're going to these Big Ten SEC schools. They've got a lot of offers from Power 4 conference programs. I think that this is going to be a very good game. I know a lot of people have their eyes set on next week's marquee matchup against Loyola, but don't be surprised if this is one of the best games of the week. That's all I got to say about Friday night. I think it's going to be a great showing of high school football, and I'm really glad that this one is in week 8. If it was earlier on in the season, I don't think it would have as much hype or expectations for both teams. Now that we're coming towards the end of the season and both teams have a guaranteed playoff spot, these guys are fighting for bragging rights, right? These guys have their future kind of set now. It's just who wants it more, and I absolutely love games like that. Yeah.
So next we have soccer. This is good. Coach Godinez won Coach of the Year. He's my Spanish teacher. He's always looking into improve these soccer players, their skill levels. He's looking into what soccer players could go move on to playoffs and see who's ready. So yeah, he's a tough coach, but good personality. And we have Brandon Razo. He won an award. Deserves it. Great player.
Yeah, Bishop. These two members of the Mount Carmel community we have here, I think they don't get the respect they deserve, right? In the midst of the fall sports season, there's just too much going on to recognize these guys, you know. I know we've been saying it a lot. We're proud of these, but we really need to take a moment and appreciate these two people. I'll start with Coach Godinez since you brought him up first. Tony Lawless Award winner for the Chicago Catholic League Blue. CCL Blue, no matter which sport, it's bound to be a good division, good conference, whatever you want to call it. Coach Godinez, man, there's something unique there about him, right? I think when you think of a coach, you know, obviously he's got to do the groundwork, such as, you know, getting ready for games and having plays set up and, you know, making the roster, just basic things like that. Coach Godinez goes above and beyond, you know, and that's why that the sheer fact that he goes above and beyond, in certain ways of really making connections with his players and building relationships with them, bonding with everybody on the team, whether you're going to see the field or not on game day. That is what led the soccer team to have such an incredible past around month and a half, we'll call it. They started off the season a little shaky, had a couple of losses, a few ties to teams in which they should have beat. Man, they turned it around, and that was, of course, headed by head coach Godinez. He deserves this award and more, you know. And then, of course, Brandon Razo. I went up to him the other day. I go, "How many hat tricks do you have on the season?" Now, if you're a soccer player, a striker in particular, you should probably have that number up in your head, right? You should know how many hat tricks you have. You should know how many goals you've scored. He had no idea. And that's nothing against Brandon because it's not his fault. He scores so much that when I asked him, hey, you know, what's your goal count? How many hat tricks do you got? He's like, to be honest, man, I lost count like 3 weeks ago. And I'm like, you know what? That's a good thing for us that you don't know. He goes out there, he does his thing, scores one early on, and then after that 45-minute mark, he comes out. He stirs things up in the game. He takes the lead and more. He's been having an incredible season. I think he's getting up there too with the goal record, the total goal record for a single player in a season. He is a senior too, so this is his last tour, and I'm very proud of him. I'm very glad that this is his best year, his senior year. Bryce, what do we got for the future, though? Because I know we just had these awards come out, but these awards are for the regular season. Now we're moving on into the playoffs. What do we got for that?
Yeah, soccer sectionals next Wednesday at Hinsdale Central High School. Their opponent is yet to be determined about what happens in the regionals, but we're looking forward to a very deep playoff run because this has been a very successful regular season. Yeah, so excited to see what they do.
I think I'll add one more thing. I of course, after I learned that Coach Godinez won that award, the next time I saw him, I said, "Congrats, that's great," you know. And he said, And he said, "Yeah, we got sectionals next Wednesday, though." He's got his eyes set on something. He has unfinished business from 2016 when the soccer program were the runner-ups for the state championship. He really wants that success for the program, and I think we have the talent for it. We just got to go out there and get it.
So next we have cross country. This has been rough for me because I had ankle injury, but you know, we have a bunch of people who ran sub 20. Bryce, you've gotten your first sub 20 time. You ran 19 minutes and 37 seconds, I believe, and yeah, it's been a pretty good meet for you, and it's been a pretty good meet for the whole team. A lot of people have ran and got PRs.
Yeah, so in the past 2 weeks since we've been all shoulder to shoulder, TJ Kolke ran sub 19. Gavin's Lions Menke, Dom Mansilla, Adam Stanislawski, Hunter Hawkins, Jack Moran, and Gavin McGovern have all ran PRs over the past 2 weeks. So it's been a successful cross country season in terms of guys just getting better and improving their times by minutes. And I think that'll really catapult us into this Chicago Catholic League Championship this week at Loyola's campus. So pretty much all of our rivals in football, basketball, they're going to be there. Brother Rice,
Yeah.
Loyola, Ignatius, all those teams. We're looking forward to have a really good performance because I really think this team has improved from the start of the season and that we're a really good group of runners.
Yeah. Who would you say is, the best opponent out of that group in the Catholic League?
Well, I know DePaul has a great cross-country team,
Okay.
especially, like, their girls. Like, they frequently get, like, a 15, which if you run cross-country, that's the scores are added up based on your place. So
Okay.
15 is the lowest score you can get because 1 plus 2 plus 3
Yeah,
plus 4
yeah,
plus
yeah,
5
yeah.
is 15. And I also think their boys are really good, too. I know Niles Notre Dame has a good program as well. I'm not sure if they're running in this meet, but no, they have a great program as well. We've been in some meets with them. So there are a lot of cross-country powerhouses, but I think we've really competed with them and have improved our times a lot.
Yeah, I definitely got to look into that more now that conferences is coming up. But it's good to know that DePaul's got a good program. I'll look into that, because ever since we met them in the state championship for basketball, now whenever they're brought up, things get a little more interesting. Yeah.
And now moving on to hockey. There's a game tomorrow night. It's at Marist versus Morgan Park. We're playing against Marist at the Morgan Park Center. It should be an interesting team. We got a decent hockey team. Said that we got good players. It's just gonna be fun to be there, support Mount Carmel hockey team, what they've done during the regular seasons. I know they're playing until February, so they're gonna have a ton of these games. So they don't get to experience what they need out of this one. What do you think the game's gonna look like, Bryce?
Yeah, well, I know the hockey team had a little bit of a rough season last year, and I've heard that they've done really good things this season in terms of catapulting from that. So, yeah, come out, support them against Marist at the Morgan Park Ice Center tomorrow.
Yeah, the feel of the program has changed for sure from last year to now. I know you guys weren't students here last year, but the season was rough, and talking to those guys who were on the team last year, they weren't really afraid to admit that. But they also weren't afraid to admit that they were going to put the work in over the offseason to try and change things. Not only do they have a new head coach, not only do they have a lot more support, a lot of different people supporting them from the past years, things like that. I think the vibe of the team has changed. You can tell they're going out there to win now. They're not going over there. They're not going out there just to get it over with. So, they're looking to shake things up in the Catholic League this year, I think. Yeah. I'll make one last mention. The golf season is over for the team. Just want to give a quick shout out to Michael Schwarz. We really didn't talk about him that much over the past few weeks. He was out with illness. I know we mentioned that a lot, but I kind of want to just give it some closure. it's not great having your senior season cut short due to illness, but I think we got to give him props because he worked really hard the past 3 seasons with those older guys building a program, and now that the program has been built in a sense, Shores doesn't really get to go out there and play in the atmosphere that he created, in the environment that he created. He had to step aside and let other guys take over. So I think that's leadership if I've ever seen it. That's being a senior on a team, on a high school team. So shout out to Michael Shores. I just wanted to say that. Yeah. That's really it. So Bishop, take us away.
Yeah, so it's been an interesting fall season. Um, we'll see how this progresses. We'll see if soccer will get good playoff run. We'll see if we could do well in football and hockey. Yeah, shout out to the golf team. Um, Shout out to all the people that got injured that are still there to support. We'll catch you next time.
All right.